Hi, I'm David Barr Kirtley, host of the Geek's Guide to the Galaxy podcast. The conversation you're about to hear originally appeared in episode 110 of Geek's Guide to the Galaxy. To learn more, visit us at geeksguideshow.com. And for our panel today, we'll be discussing assholes and trolls and how to deal with them. And I'm joined by two guest geeks. So first up, we've got my good friend and longtime co-host, John Joseph Adams. He's the editor and publisher of Lightspeed and Nightmare magazines, and the series editor of Best American Science Fiction and Fantasy. He's also edited many other anthologies, including the recent books The End Is Nigh and Dead Man's Hand. So John, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back.
And also joining us today is Aaron James. He holds a PhD from Harvard and is professor of philosophy at the University of California, Irvine. He's also the author of the nonfiction books Fairness in Practice, A Social Contract for a Global Economy, and Assholes, A Theory. So Aaron, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks very much. It's nice to be here.
Okay, and so how this panel came about is it just seems like John and I have had to deal with a lot of assholes lately. And I'm sure many of our listeners have as well, since it seems like assholes are everywhere. And so we thought it might be useful to just have a little brainstorming session here and try to figure out why people act like such assholes and how we should deal with it. And then we discovered that Aaron had written a whole book on the subject, so he just seems like the perfect person to help us out. So Aaron, to start off with, why don't you just tell us a bit about how you got so interested in assholes?
Oh yeah, the whole idea started actually while I was surfing, and when surfers share waves according to rules of right-of-way, and this one particular guy breaks the rules, sort of taking people's waves in a really brazen way, and then gets really angry and yells when they complain, completely legitimately. And one day, this one particular guy, kind of a regular at the place I surf, was coming by, and I thought, man, he's an asshole, kind of in the usual way. But then I had this thought for the first time, a philosophical thought, which was, hey, wait a second, that thought, he's an asshole, has what philosophers call cognitive content. That is to say, it classifies the person as of a certain type, and he's an asshole, and the other people out there aren't. And that's, correct according to certain conditions. So I got thinking, well, what are the conditions? Maybe I should I should try to define the term, right, basically. So I got working on it and with a leisurely summer, sort of cooked up the definition that I came up with that's in the book.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, why don't you tell us about that definition?
Yeah, so the basic idea is that the asshole is the guy, and assholes are mainly men, by the way. He's the guy who takes special advantages in cooperative life. So maybe he cuts in line, or he talks too loud on his cell phone, or he interrupts too often in a conversation, or he parks in handicap spaces, in his car without a handicap, where he does those things out of an entrenched sense of entitlement. So because he thinks he's really smart or richer than everyone else, or just has a general sense of superiority. And the final thing is that his sense of entitlement immunizes him, as I put it, against the complaints of other people. So if somebody pipes up when he cuts in line, he'll just wall out the objection, or he'll tell him to piss off or whatever. He doesn't feel like he has to listen to the complaints of other people, given his sense of entitlement. And in fact, he might feel like he's the one being disrespected because he's being questioned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we all have lots of experience with assholes going back to childhood. And the first thing I really want to talk about is schoolyard bullies. Now, when I was a kid, I got bullied a lot. And adults would always say to me, oh, bullies are just insecure. And, you just have to talk to them and understand them and work out your problems. And it never seemed to me any of my bullies were particularly insecure. It just seems like they liked inflicting pain on other people and didn't feel any consequences for doing that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree that it's not just from insecurity. Maybe some of them are, but for the most part, I think they're probably just enjoying the rush of power that they have from their physical superiority over over weaker kids, and sort of exploring for themselves. If you want to be a little bit sympathetic, they're sort of exploring their own power in a way that shapes their sense of themselves too, as sort of effectual. And maybe the bully thinks that they're getting recognition that they think they deserve too, at an early age, when they feel sort of invisible or unrecognized. So maybe that's a little by way of sympathy, but for the most part, they're just exercising power and kind of exploring it. dominating other people in a callous way, and sort of taking advantage of what the social situation allows. And the school are, if bullying isn't policed very carefully by, teachers or administrators, then or other students, then the bully knows that they can get away with certain things, and so, kind of create a reign of terror and control. And and they're just sort of enjoying it, just like a dictator of a country does, who rises to power and got his hand on the oil spigot, and that can now dole out money to the generals to keep him in power. So it's not that different. A kind of sort of almost amoral pleasure in the exercise of power.
Mm. I mean, John, what was your experience with bullies kind of growing up?
Oh, well, I mean, I definitely had my fair share of bullies, and I mean, I was certainly always very frustrated by the school's decision to not do anything about it. I had this spinal defect when I was younger, and it's like scoliosis, but instead of deviating to the left or right, it deviated back to front. It's called kyphosis. And so I had a bit of a curve to my spine, and so kids used to make fun of me all the time about that, and they were just merciless. Yeah, I mean, even if they were just insecure, it doesn't make you feel any better about it.
Uh-huh. And how about Aaron? Just personally, did you deal with bullies growing up? Did you have to fight anyone ever?
I mean, I didn't. I think I did get into a fight in third grade, but it wasn't with a bully. It was the only fight I ever got into. I don't remember a lot of bullies. I was never bullied anyway. I was a kid, but as a surfer, believe it or not, there are a lot of bullies, and there's a lot of threats of physical violence. Partly because people.
Well, no, I saw Point Break, so I mean,
this is familiar, maybe. I mean, it's not just that's not just Hollywood. It really is sort of a routine thing for surfers who are competing over waves and being contentious, and people who are sort of quick to scrap for a fight sort of can use that as a way of, not just enforcing their rights, but trying to get special privileges in the lineup. And if you complain, then somebody can immediately say, "What are you going to do about it?" And then if there's sort of a threatening fight, and there's all kinds of versions. It's like there actually are lots of fights that break out, but in other cases, it's sort of a test of will. Who can sort of posture, and be the most intimidating, and who will back down first. And but surfers do, at least certain surfers do, really quickly even right away go to threats of violence. So it happens a fair bit, especially when you get to the more hot-headed types, whose whole sense of self-respect is tied up with, being able to stand their own in a fight. It's a very silly kind of ritual, but unfortunately, still the way of the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, like, a lot of my thoughts about bullying were really influenced by Orson Scott Card's novel Ender's Game, which I read a lot as a kid, and deals with bullying very prominently. And the approach that the main character in that book takes is that if someone bullies you, you just have to beat the shit out of them so badly that they'll be too terrified to ever look at you the wrong way again. And I don't think this is the right approach at all, because it seems to me that if you beat someone that badly, then they're humiliated and they have to come back and get their revenge on you at some point.
Yes.
And that if you're going to fight someone, it seems like you have to fight well enough to show that you can't be pushed around, but not so well that you humiliate the other person so much that it leads to a whole cycle of revenge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Curiously, that's also advice that people give to people about to go into prison.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, I suppose it also doesn't work to just say, look, I'm not going to fight. If we fight to the death, and I might arrange to have somebody kill you instead of actually fighting you myself, I mean, because, then it's sort of all, but that brings the fact that nobody ever says that when I presume it's not very expensive to admittedly illegally pay somebody, to have a bully, killed or whatever.
Okay, so the philosophy professor is telling us if someone cuts in front of you in line, you got to kill him. Otherwise, your problems are just never going to end.
But what I'm saying is the fact that nobody thinks of that possibility is an interesting way that there's this sort of ethos around fighting. There's a way of sort of civilized fist fighting, or perceived civilized fist fighting, fighting like men or whatever, in which, say for surfers, both surfers carefully remove their flip-flops and place them to the side so they don't get muddy or dirty, right? And then And then there's this dance that happens, right, in which there's certain ideas about what counts as, a fair blow or whatever, in which they're going to have a test of strength that, is supposed to settle what? I mean, like,
Yeah.
so why would the test of strength or courage, settle who's to be respected or not? I mean, morally speaking, you think, look, this can't settle the moral question of equality or who should defer to whom, or who has right of way on a wave, or who's going to be deferential. But there's this set of rituals anyway that are sort of taken for granted among the bullying types, and in some sense, when someone is threatened a fight, they're expecting you to sort of take up this almost like a chivalrous way. You're not allowed to like escalate radically. You can't pull a gun or whatever. You can't pick up a rock or a stick and start clobbering the person. You're supposed to just scrap it out with mere like physical strength and courage. And it's a strange kind of highly structured kind of social practice, a kind of dance. But you might think, like, as a morally serious person who's truly civilized, you think, look, violence aren't we beyond the need for violence? We have the state to intervene to protect us from violence, and disputes aren't going to be settled through violence, properly speaking. So why would we even go to it in the first place? If somebody's attacking you and you just make no effort to defend yourself, then you're not you're not letting them draw you into this dance. I mean, if you just don't respond, then and maybe that involves getting punched and just not responding, then even the bully within those same norms, isn't necessarily going to keep on going, because once it won't sort of establish their power further if you're not responding. If they can't win a sort of a fair fight or whatever, then they won't get. They don't get the status that they're sort of shooting for. So, so in some way, just nonviolent, resistance, or just fleeing, or things like that, is really the best course.
I mean, a major inspiration for this panel topic is I went to see a movie recently, and the guy sitting in front of me and a little bit to the side had his phone out through the first like 15 minutes of the movie, just holding it right up in front of his face, waving it around. And it was so annoying. And finally, I sort of tapped the back of his chair and said, like, could you please turn off your phone? And he turned it off, and I go back to watching the movie. And then a second later, I hear his voice, and he's like, don't hit me again, do you understand? And I look over, and he's like turned around, glaring at me. And you could just tell from his voice that he was just really, really stupid and had really, really poor impulse control. And I was really afraid he was gonna like just come at me in the middle of this movie, And so ever since then, I've been thinking about that whole situation of just people being assholes in movie theaters, and I just want to go to a movie and not have people shining their phone in my eyes and talking loudly behind me, and like what do you even do about that?
That to me. Should I answer?
How about John? What do you think? What did you think about my story there?
Oh yeah, no. Well, I mean, I definitely relate to it. I haven't had that exact experience, but I've certainly like that kind of asshole-ish behavior it drives me crazy. Like I just can't stand it. Like especially like in a movie theater, because like I don't know, like I guess I kind of treat movies like with a certain amount of respect, in that even if it's not like going to be a great movie, I want to go and have the experience of watching it without having all these outside annoyances bothering me. And just so like, anytime you're in the movies and you have people who are like, sort of kicking your seat and everything, and it's like, how do you not know that that's not a thing that you do? It's like, this is not your living room, where, because they talk and they just, crinkle their bags of goodies or whatever, and just like it's like they think that they just like it goes back to what Aaron was saying about entitlement. It's just like people feel like they're so entitled to just do whatever they want, like when they're in a public place like that. As far as what to do about it, I wish that there was a technological solution. Like, I wish that I could just have an app on my phone that could, like, tattle on this person and, like, alert the ushers or whatever so that they deal with it. Because, it's not my job. Like, and like you said, I mean, you potentially could have gotten in a fight with this guy for trying to tell him to turn off his phone. It's like, but, like, if we could just have something that we could alert the ushers to let them come deal with it, that would be one thing. But alas, we don't have anything like that. And of course, that only would potentially work in a movie theater situation, not in all the other situations where you might run into assholes in the world.
Well, and of course, this whole time I'm thinking about that guy who got shot and killed in the movie theater. You know, when he
Hmm.
got, I don't know if you read about that, that there was just like some guy asked him to turn his phone off and he said, fuck you. And the guy threw popcorn at him and then somebody shot somebody. And yeah, like that's just one of the like awesome things about living in the United States is like you have to worry about every like dumbass in a movie theater packing a gun, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sort of, I don't know, sad or tragic fact of life. I mean, it's just a general fact that in some cases it's not going to be worth it for you to enforce your real rights. In this case, to have the guy just take it easy, and I mean, if he's really going to act out and threaten violence or like a huge amount of aggression over such a small, and fair request, then it's better to just switch seats and enjoy the film than stage a grand effort to get the guy to do
Yeah,
the right
like
thing.
I don't want it to be my epitaph. Like he died, he died enforcing movie theater norms.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. I mean, and there are like much greater injustices. That is a real injustice, but there are bigger injustices to die for in the world. I mean, if you're
Hmm.
going to go out, like do it for something really worthy and important. There's maybe something of a practical lesson. I mean, in some cases, you just have to avoid and diffuse those encounters, and that's frustrating for us. But there is something you can do to be a little bit proactive about them especially before they sort of become tense and heightened, and that is make a polite request calmly before you're upset.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, partly like inconsiderate behavior or assholes are trading on the fact that it's sort of difficult or uncomfortable for people to sort of intervene and ask. And then we often do it, but only after we're like pretty pissed off, right? And
Hmm.
so then we sort of respond in an angry way or an accusatory way. But a good way of trying to preempt that whole dynamic is to sort of quickly make a very polite, calm, and maybe even respectful request and make a joke. Like you could say very quickly on, if the person's checking, you say, hey, I know I'm totally addicted to my phone too, but can we just make sure that we're not checking the phone in the during the film or whatever, like that. And then they might say, oh, okay, sure. You give them an opportunity to just have a gracious out, as it were, as opposed to
Hmm.
uh, defending their themselves and their righteousness. So, and even that can even work with somebody who's really is. That's true if you don't know whether they're going to become it, or they really are an asshole or not. But even when somebody who you know is an asshole, not necessarily in a violent moment, it still can be worth making a polite request without any hint of accusation, because sometimes they'll do it. But if the person really isn't going to listen, then it's much better for you to find other ways of sort of satisfying yourself and your own demands for recognition, like complaining to friends or making a stand on someone. I mean, it's for some other
Complaining
context.
about it on your podcast.
Yeah, sure. There you go. I mean, that's really important for us to do, but there are a lot of ways to do it, and it's natural to want to exact respect from the asshole himself, but their condition is such that they're sort of dug in and won't recognize other people, and so the kind of tragedy of the asshole encounter is that the best thing is to give up the thing you really are entitled to, which is to get them to listen, just because it's not worth fighting for that injustice necessarily.
Hmm.
Yeah, I that's something that I think we all probably need to really hear in terms of saying something calmly and right at the start of the annoyance rather than letting it build up, because I know I always let that happen, like because I won't even be motivated to say anything until I'm like furious, and it's just like it, and then even then I don't want to say anything, and so yeah, it's very hard to actually convince yourself to do it, but of course, yeah, it's like given how potentially dangerous it actually is to actually confront an asshole, since like Dave was saying, you never know what this asshole is going to be packing. Yeah, it's, I mean, something to definitely consider, especially for a lot of our listeners who are potentially like us and or like Dave and I, and that we're sort of geeky and not necessarily prime physical specimens. I mean,
What?
Dave
Hold
would
on.
argue, but
Yeah, I mean, just for like, I know this is an audio podcast, so people maybe don't know what I look like, but I'm 6'2". I used to play lacrosse and rugby. I mean,
yeah,
I mean, I'm really geeky, but it's by no means a foregone conclusion that I would get my ass kicked in a fight. I
right,
mean, I think this guy probably would have kicked my ass because he was really big, but
yeah.
I could at least put up a pretty good fight in most
I mean,
situations.
I'm pretty big too, but I mean, I would expect myself to get my ass kicked, basically. I mean, in most cases, I mean, I'm probably big enough that I would maybe deter some people from trying because they don't know, but I'm not much of a fighter. So I'll speak for only myself then.
Okay,
Not Dave. Not
All
Dave.
Right. Correction noted. Well, after I posted this on Facebook, this story, and one of my friends who lives in Austin was saying there's a movie theater there called the Alamo Draft House, and they have a zero tolerance policy toward, being on your phone or talking during the movie or whatever. And they actually have an ad for the theater. It's absolutely hilarious. So it's this really bitchy phone call that somebody called and left a message on their answering machine after she got kicked out of one of their movie theaters about how she'll never come back. And so they just play this message, and then at the end it says like, "Thanks for not coming back to our theater." And they just show that before every movie. And God, I wish there was a place like that in New York somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, that's the other solution, right? I mean, part of these encounters happen because people know that they can sort of push the boundaries for, where they can break social norms without being held accountable, because they know they're not going to get, a full court press, for enforcement. If they just have to deal with you complaining, trying to hold them accountable, then they feel like, oh, they can deal with that. They can blow it off their usual defense.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but even in a normal movie theater, right? Before every movie, there's like 2 messages telling you not to use your phone during the movie. And so if I'm sitting there using my phone after I must have seen hundreds of messages in my life saying not to use your phone during the movie, and then someone tells me that it's bothering them, please turn it off. What's going through my head as an asshole that I think the problem is with them?
Yeah, right. I mean, so they don't, the asshole's perfectly aware of the social norms, and they also think that other people ought to keep the norms, and they're pissed off when other people are violating them. But they tell themselves a story, like Leona Helmsley, taxes are for the little people, and they think, they style themselves as special in some way, or they don't, they're self-important, oh, I have important calls to make, I have to check my phone, sometimes it's a specific sense of entitlement, that you can pin down, one that they sort of use over and over again, tell themselves stories about why they can make an exception of themselves. In other cases, it's sort of just a diffuse sense that I'm special and the normal rules don't apply to me. And, other people, of course, can't, expect me to behave just like them, so it could be any number of different sort of rationalizations. And the state of mind that the asshole has is just one of being stably disposed and entrenched in some such rationalization, such that they make themselves out to have special entitlements. And when they're questioned, as they naturally can, because they're often pretty flimsy rationalizations, they just react in a defensive way to sort of wall out. They're not going to take the objections seriously. And so that's basically the asshole's way of being.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, I was talking about that with some friends afterward. I'm like, this guy's having his phone out, which can't be that important, provoked this nasty confrontation with me. Is there any chance that he's going to not take his phone out at the very next movie he goes to? Like, even the slightest chance?
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, if things can get bad enough, he might decide it's inconvenient, right? For example, if in your case a big scuffle ensued, and then the movie theater people had to come out and police it, then maybe he doesn't want all that hassle, right, for the next time. But in that case, he won't pull out his phone, but for the wrong reasons. He won't pull it out to avoid hassle, because in that case, the norm was enforced, and enough to make it inconvenient for him to do it.
Yeah, it's just sort of Pavlovian at that point.
Yeah, or he just counts the costs and thinks it's not worth it. I mean, or if you complain, oh, he doesn't want an argument right now because he's, so maybe he reins it in. But he's not doing that out of recognition of, your rightful status to, ask him to obey a perfectly reasonable social norm. That's not why he's going to do it next time if he doesn't pull out the phone. So, it's just because, the movie he might think isn't as enjoyable if people start complaining, start harping on him, or if they don't show him the respect he deserves by just leaving him alone.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, he might sort of fall in the line with the social norm. But still not real recognition of, the claims and interests of the other people around him.
All right, so I mean, there's a lot more I could say about movie theater assholes, but given our time limits, I have to move on to our next subject, which is a big, big subject, which is internet assholes. Now,
The natural home of the asshole.
Yeah, their natural habitat, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, some of our younger listeners may have trouble believing this, but there was no internet when John and I were kids, right? So when the internet came in, it was kind of shocking because as a kid, I had always imagined that most adults were generally like adult, right? They were mature and reasonable and stuff. And then when the internet came along, it was just really shocking to see what giant assholes most people were when they were anonymous and, could just say whatever they wanted without consequence. So I don't know, Aaron, what do you think about that phenomenon of just like the internet laying bare how many assholes are among us?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I think it does bring out the assholes, partly because it's just even easier for them to, act like an asshole in the ways that they otherwise would. But I mean, I think it maybe even more interesting is the way that distinctive features of the social context and the medium make it so that people who aren't otherwise assholes start acting like them, right? It's a couple things. Partly anonymity, although I don't think it's entirely that, because a lot of times people, even though they're not anonymous, are still saying completely, intemperate and rude things, sort of without really even a sense that there's another person actually receiving, and being hurt by what's said.
Yeah. So, now that we're on the subject of the internet, it's like my favorite part of this discussion. And, one of the reasons that we actually thought to do this is because actually we get a lot of assholes commenting on our posts on wired.com where the podcast airs. And the thing that makes it even more fun for us to be able to do this panel is that the assholes that comment and leave these asshole comments over there, they never listen to the podcast. It's like they see the article on Wired, and then they skim it or whatever. They generally don't even read that, but they're compelled to leave a comment and leave all sorts of asshole-ish comments in a variety of manners. And so it's just kind of awesome that we can actually have this discussion, and they will comment on the post, and they won't even know.
Yeah, and we just have the experience over and over again where someone will post kind of a dickish comment and you'll address it and it'll lead to a dialogue where it gets more or less resolved. And then someone else will post the exact same dickish comment with no knowledge that this whole conversation has already happened. And it just happens over and over and over again. So this actually gave me, I think it's a brilliant idea for a product. I want to call it Asshat Newsreader. And so it's like a newsreader, but all it shows you is the headline. And then there's a box for you to type in your dickish comment. And so it's just like a list like that. So it just saves you the trouble of like skipping over the text and the other comments and just like removes them from your computer entirely. Because there are a lot of people out there, I think. I think there's a big market from this, just based on my experience.
Well, there absolutely is. I mean, I think in part, though, the person who's going to do this has to have a sense that other people are going to be reading the article with interest. So even if they don't read it, they sort of feel like, oh, this is my chance to be seen, to shine, or to get attention, sort of to appear in the eyes of others, and to be, if not respected because they're saying sensible things, but at least heard, or, sort of like the bully who, if he's not going to be respected, he wants to be feared, So there's that kind of basic motivation, I think.
You see this a lot with book reviews too, and it's kind of curious because, sites like Amazon have made, anybody with a computer able to post a review of a book. And they actually can be really damaging. And a lot of times people, they post these reviews, which obviously are criticizing a book or whatever product for being something it's not intended to be. So like I had anthologies. And so a lot of times, you get people who are complaining that it's a book of short stories and not a novel. And it's like, well, I'm sorry, that's not what it is. It's not really fair to criticize it for being something entirely different from what you hoped it would be. But that also sort of brings up this thing that I've seen from time to time where you get reviewers, not even just on Amazon, like actual professional reviewers who have a review in some publication somewhere, like they'll post a link to it on Facebook and then they'll tag the author, even though it's a negative review. And like, why would you? It's like, hey buddy, tap on the shoulder. Like, hey, did you see this terrible review of your book I wrote? Aren't you going to be very pleased with me that I pointed this out to you? And it's so puzzling. And like I saw this happen on Twitter just the other day. Like somebody read Paolo Bacigalupi's novel the Drowned Cities, and she's like a professor, and she just like tagged him in the tweet and like was like basically like, do we really need more of this kind of book? You know, like, what are you doing? That's like what an asshole thing to do. And I'm just I think it goes back to what Aaron was saying about like the disconnect between dealing with a person face to face and dealing with this sort of this facade of a person that you sort of perceive on the internet, even though it's actually a real person behind there. So yeah, but it's just like it's funny how the internet like strips away those barriers that people would otherwise respect.
Yeah, and I mean, and that raises the issue of should the author respond to that or not.
Mm-hmm.
And John and I have had kind of a long running disagreement on this, where I'm, John's of the opinion that you should basically never respond to bad reviews. And I'm of the opinion that the internet has changed the dynamic of that, where it's much more appropriate for the author to respond to a review when it's when it's in some way unfairly personal. Like if the person's like, I didn't like this book because the writing style was bad or something, like don't respond to that. That's stupid. But if they're saying really nasty stuff about you, nasty personal stuff about you, then I think that the dynamic becomes more like a heckler heckling a stand-up comedian, where the stand-up comedian is much more justified in shutting that person down, because the person is just being, sort of brazenly aggressive in a public place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I suppose it's tricky. I mean, if the person is just baiting you, then they'd love it if you respond. Then, they're kind of winning you, in some sense, because you're taking the bait. But I suppose you'd want to have some specific thing that you want to point out or correct for everyone else for that to be worthwhile. I mean, I had my own feelings of frustration about the Amazon page for the book about assholes, which is, some people would write, careful, thoughtful reviews, and but then they'd get buried, underneath people sort of who would say very intemperate things, or like you say, didn't really appreciate the point of the book, or missing something, or just sort of have some other extra grind and they want to express a primal scream, or they insult me, so I didn't respond to any of this stuff, but it did kind of wear on me, and partly because even the bad ones wouldn't necessarily get buried, or people can sort of say whether they find it's helpful or not, and that can suppress some of the bad ones. Mm-hmm. But some of the ones that wouldn't get suppressed, they'd still be hanging around. So it's like somebody. So it's feels like this terrible thing where somebody can just sort of take a crap on your book with no merit, and your only hope is that people who read those things sort of understand that that's sort of how these things go. They're not really serious about, they're not going to take it seriously. But actually, so I was sort of bothered by those things, and then didn't spend much time reading it because I didn't think there was much point to it. But I was very pleased finally when somebody just straight out called me an asshole on the Amazon review page. That just makes completely obvious how degraded this whole exchange is. So nobody can miss that this is just like trolling and trashing, and this is just a kind of garbage thing. And maybe it's a little better now over time because some of that stuff has got suppressed. But I felt very gratified actually when I was called an asshole, just because it made it obvious to anyone else that they shouldn't take this seriously. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, I think if you're trying to decide how to respond to, like, whether and how to respond to someone, it's important to figure out whether you're dealing with just sort of like a dickish comment from a normal person, a dickish comment from an asshole, or a dickish comment from a troll, right?
Yeah.
Because if it's a dickish comment from a normal person, like 90% of the time, if you reply and you're calm and friendly and reasonable and, try to have a dialogue with them, they almost instantly apologize and say, oh, that was a little harsh. I didn't like this, right. but I was, I should have been more polite, whatever. And it can be hard to know whether, which of those categories it is. Whereas the distinction I would make between an asshole and a true troll is an asshole like means the stuff they're saying and a troll doesn't.
Right. Mm. Yeah, I agree. I've definitely had that experience from people, not just on the Amazon thing, but people who write me with emails about the book. There's a lot of email, and then some people say very like strong, almost insulting things, and I write back. I return, all the email, and I try to say, consider it, thank you for reading thing. I'll ignore some of the criticism, but I'll address some of the concerns or whatever. And then, as you say, some people write back immediately. Oh, I'm sorry. Once it's sort of we're on a civil tone, then they lose all of the edge. And so I guess there's people posting. Like that for sure, but that still raises this interesting question of like, why would they address somebody even over an email, which is a more direct form of communication anyway? Why would they address them in sort of a slash and burn way. They're not thinking of it as a normal. Even in that case, that's not a troll, right? Who really is baiting and goading and taking advantage maybe of another person's failure to appreciate the anonymous nature or the lack of expectations of sincerity. These other people are thinking of it as an extension of normal communication, and yet they're basically swearing at a stranger for no reason. And maybe they correct once they get an actual response, but it's a strange thing that they don't start out thinking that I am addressing, a person who's real in the first instance.
Well, yeah, and I mean, like Felicia Day talks about this. I mean, it's so funny sometimes, someone will post a comment and say like, oh, I hate Felicia Day. She's so annoying and fake, whatever. And if Felicia Day actually posts a response and says like, I'm sorry you feel that way, what should I be doing differently in your opinion? Then the person half the time will be like, oh my God, Felicia Day is talking to me. Hi, Felicia, I love you. And it's just like, it's like you're not a real person. People just like are so used to just, like you're in your living room and you just say whatever you want at the TV and no one cares. The idea that like that person might actually hear you and respond like is like not even something that's in people's mind.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, speaking of Felicia Day, that brings up the potentially the worst cesspool of the internet, asshole, YouTube. To the extent that actually there's a brilliant satire team that called YouTube Comment Reconstructions, and so there's this team of guys that they pick some stupid flame war in YouTube comments and they reenact it, but like they're sort of like Shakespearean trained actors. It's so hilarious, but it obviously points out the complete absurdity of these stupid flame wars that you end up in on YouTube. Not that you even need a flame war to get going to have it be awful. I mean, almost every YouTube post will have some horrible comment within like the first two comments, and it's just like a rule. And like I think YouTube is where the sort of dictum came from. Don't read the comments. Although it's been happening. It's basically being applied to almost everything now, especially like any kind of news article, like on a newspaper website that has anything to do with politics. It's just like the first comment's going to be like if you agree with the articles, the first comment's going to be something that you find horribly offensive. But yeah, YouTube though, it's kind of its own ecosystem, and it's bizarre in how much hate there is there. Any theories about what the deal with that is?
Well, I thought you were going to say, John, that it brings up how much worse women are treated on the internet.
Well, that too, yeah, because it's so appearance based and misogynist otherwise.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I can think of is there's sort of an abuse of something that is potentially a valuable social function. So if you think of the heckler in the comedy club or in a music club, and there's somebody like a comedian is truly like abysmal, not just like making an effort, but really abysmal, or a musician who plays like truly terrible music, and the heckler has some need to yell out, you suck, and then now everybody else, now that could be an interruption, but other people might actually feel like, yeah, I'm glad that we've established that this sucks because it's an offense against like our appreciation for the enterprise, say comedy or music, or I feel this almost every time I hear a Kenny G song. I want to yell out, "You suck!" And if there was like a Kenny G website, I'd want to like trash it, or so, and I want to tell other people, you have to know that this is not good music, I feel like.
Okay, but then what if Kenny G responded and he was really polite and he's like, I'm sorry, you don't like my music, but don't you think you're being a little harsh here?
Yeah, I actually just read an interview by him where he's discussing things, and I did have that own. I didn't interact with him obviously, but I thought, oh well, Kenny G, he is a real person who has a mind that can be sensible and all that, so he just obviously very different and maybe bad taste. Not that he's not a talented musician; it's sort of what he's choosing to do with his talents. So yeah, I did have that sort of self-correcting experience. But in that case, like the part of me that can resonate with is you feel like there really is something important to take a stand for that the group or the people involved just aren't really aware of, and it can be worth breaking some norm of civility to stand up for that.
Mm-hmm. I do want to talk a bit more about how to respond to assholes and trolls and stuff. I mean, sort of my working theory for how you should do this is that if it's a dickish comment from a normal person, you should reply politely. If it's a dickish comment from an asshole, you should reply politely or ignore it. And if it's a comment from a true troll, you should ignore it. But sometimes you make a you think someone's an asshole, but they're actually a troll, and now you're in a conversation with them, and it becomes obvious that they're actually just a true troll. And then the question is, what do you do at that point? And I'm not quite sure. I mean, the best solution I found is just, I mean, you want to be like completely without emotion, right? Because the troll's whole like joy in life is to like see you lose your composure. So you want to show like absolutely no emotion whatsoever. And what I found so far works the best is just to like say really, really boring stuff, and then they'll just get bored eventually and go away, because it's not fun if you're just saying like long, really boring things in response to their constant goading.
That's good.
Yeah, actually, Dave has some epic. He displayed some epic troll fighting skills in a couple recent posts. We could probably point the links out to you, or maybe Dave, you remember which episodes they were. But there was a couple recent podcast episodes that the post just had like a ton of different comments, and I saw Dave was replying to them, and I was like, at first, because I like he was saying, I tend to say don't argue back with reviews and whatever, and comments on a post like that are kind of like reviews. But I was like following it along, and I'm like, wow, man, that was actually pretty impressive. It's like, because like he said, he sort of turned some people around that were being dicks at the start, and I think it actually ended up making it a good thing. And because, well, first of all, it made the comment section lively. There was a lot of comments, and so anybody who was scrolling past, they would see there was a lot of discussion. But then also, yeah, like I think he definitely mollified the concerns of some of the people who were detractors.
Oh yeah, and I did want to give in our most recent post, I did want to give a shout out to Vlad Levin and Danny from Barcelona for sticking up for us. I really appreciated that, you guys. Well,
actually, that brings up another thing too. Is like, in a case where you have a post anywhere and it's like there isn't a lot of comment activity, if there's that one troll that leaves a comment there, it's awful for you, because then, like, if you're the creator of that post, the only comment there that everyone who comes to the page will see is this comment from a troll. And the same thing happens with a book review. Like, if you only have one review on Amazon and somebody gives it a 1 star and it's just a complete asshole review, it's like that's the only thing people will see when they go to see your book. And so, you sort of have to hope that somebody who knows better otherwise will get the book anyway and then post their review regardless of what evidence there is that the book might suck on the website because of the asshole review. So that becomes kind of a problem, because I've had that a couple times where I've had smaller books that just didn't get a lot of reviews, and so they only had like 4 or 5, but like 3 of them were like asshole reviews. And so it tanks your star rating, so it makes it look like the book sucks, even though it actually is. I mean, most non-assholes would consider that it's a pretty good thing, but it's
Yeah. And I think there's just like a quirk of human psychology that tilts things toward bad reviews, because if somebody like listens to a podcast and they like it, they're like, hey, that was good, and they go about their day. Whereas if something pisses them off about it, then they go and post a comment. So, the upset comment, the irate comments are massively overrepresented, among the posts.
That's true. I mean, in my own experience with Amazon, and then also, there was that book excerpt that was published on Salon before the book came out for the Assholes book, and then which really got a huge amount of discussion on the Salon page, but then also on Reddit there was like got over that. So, but in comparing the two things, I mean, the Salon section, which was just placed on order, of posting, sort of most recent comment appeared. I mean, it was awful. I mean, I was I mean, there was really a lot of traffic, but the amount of just the abuses of the kind we've been talking about was just astounding. But then on the Reddit side, there was a ton of discussion too. But because it had, by the time I started to really catch up with it, people are always upvoting or downvoting the stuff that was helpful. So basically, the reasonable and sensible discussion had already floated to the top, and the garbage stuff was suppressed, and that seemed pretty valuable. But then now on the Amazon page, they do a kind of mixed thing. So they'll have some votes for helpful or not helpful, but then they also have a column I think it's on the side where the most recent posts appear. So somebody can just keep on feeding trashy comments, and then the people will see them, even if everybody is immediately saying it's not a helpful post. And at one point, actually, they were. I remember seeing when the book first came out, there was like a few of those And I think people from the press wrote their own comments to try to bury it. Basically, you have to sort of do that stuff so that it just doesn't get attention that it just doesn't deserve.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean, what like John was saying, like the comments and the traffic helps it, even if it's from trolls. So like whenever I'm getting really, really just exasperated with a troll, I just try to tell myself that every time this person comes back to this page to post a obnoxious comment, it's just like more traffic for our site. It's pushing our stats up. I like to think I'm like some monster in a horror movie, like like Godzilla or something, where they try to blow it up with a nuclear bomb that only makes it stronger. Like I try to be like that. You can't.
Yes.
Your attacks only make me strong, only make me more powerful. I win either way.
I'm always surprised actually when I do find a site that actually seems mostly devoid of trollish comments. And I would have actually expected Wired to have a higher class of commenter just because, I mean, it's a very intellectual type of publication. And so I was kind of surprised at how much vitriol there was there. But like IO9 is actually a case where I'm really surprised that it's as sensible as it usually is. In the comments, it's like there's any number of posts that I've seen over there where I would like where I scroll down and I see the comments start, and I actually found like useful posts in the comments. Like I was like, wow, reading the comments actually increased my understanding of this topic instead of like made me want to feel like I need to go take a shower or destroy all of humanity because it's terrible. So yeah, it's always surprising when you discover those, but it's nice. It's nice that there's still some of that out there. I mean, I know partially it has to do with commenting systems and whether or not the sites are moderated. But still, even with moderation, it's so hard to keep all of that out of there that it's so rare to actually find a site where you actually can read the comments.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the problem with Wired.com is that it's a big enough site that you get the YouTube effect, sort of where it's easy to find. I mean, so like sometimes some of these trolls, you can click on their profile and see what other comments they've posted. And a lot of these guys, I mean, they just go to all these big sites and they post comments, and every single comment down the line is, like one of the guys you would read, like the headline is like, newly married couple dies in car accident, and his comment would be like, good, Darwinism in action, or something like that. And it's like a comment of that level of offensiveness for every like thousands of comments that are all like that on all these major news sites. So I don't think it's so much that Wired readers are like that as just like Wired is big enough that like people like that can find their way there.
Is it possible that there's some rogue hacker out there somewhere who just programmed a troll bot to go leave asshole comments all over the internet? Like I think you may have found it, Dave.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, that goes to the point, shows the clearly the motivation of just wanting to be seen and get attention and sort of have an effect on people, even if it's negative. Because somebody who's doing that is obviously doesn't really care at all about the content of the discussions on any of the sites. They just sort of want to appear and be seen, and as a way, I guess, of not just having power over other people to change their lives, in this case for the worse, but it's still a change and still a kind of power. But maybe as kind of for their own way of being recognized as real, so maybe that's part of the thrill of the idea that you can, just sitting in your house alone and normally feeling isolated and maybe socially excluded, just through enough posting or a bot that posts, across the websites, you can suddenly sort of intrude onto the minds of, large numbers of people. That's sort of a very, I think, tempting form of power, especially for people who sort of otherwise feel invisible socially.
Oh, yeah. And this person would be like, he would be a Christian in some posts or an atheist in some posts. Like, just it didn't matter. Like, whatever, persona would allow him to be maximally asshole-ish was whatever. He was like a chameleon,
Yeah.
An asshole chameleon.
He was like the asshole T-1000. He could just shift into, shift into the biggest asshole to fit any space he goes into. Yeah.
Oh, actually, that sort of reminded me. I wondered about where the line is between like asshole and sociopath, because I don't know like the strict definition of sociopath, but from generally what I understand, a lot of times like their behavior is sort of triggered by their desire to feel things, and it's harder for them to feel that's why they sort of push all these buttons and they do these things that a lot of other people find abhorrent, because like doing these extreme things is the only way they can actually like feel anything. Or maybe that's psychopath, I'm not sure. But you know, it kind of feels like there's some overlap in the discussion there, because certainly I'm sure a lot of assholes are sociopaths, and that's, you know, sort of part of what makes them so good at being assholes. But do you guys have any thoughts about that? Or
Yeah, I do. I mean, so these categories aren't that well defined. I mean, we have these terms for it, but even in the psychology literature, they're not. It's not that well defined. What's a psychopath or what's a sociopath? And then, of course, I'm proposing a definition of the asshole. But the way, and even with the asshole, you think you're sort of picking out. You focus on a sort of ideal case or model paradigmatic case, that's the clear cut asshole, and then there's gray areas and half-ass assholes and borderline assholes and stuff like that. But the big thing, and the thing I say in the book, is that the main contrast I focus on was with the psychopath. So the asshole has moral concepts, has a moral sense of entitlement, but the psychopath, again, in this sort of paradigmatic, like sort of clearest case, just lacks moral concepts altogether, or isn't motivated by them. So the psychopath can usually is pretty good at understanding social norms and can predict what people are going to do, and predict what other people are going to call wrong or call an entitlement but they don't themselves, as it were, make those judgments of their own accord that something is wrong, or they're not motivated as a result of that judgment. And so in that way, they're sort of amoral in a certain way, and that's the kind of. So for the proper psychopath, they can kill someone because they want to eat their sandwich, and if you say, well, don't you think that was wrong? And they'll say, well, I know society considers that wrong, but I was really hungry, and so and they won't necessarily kill just unnecessarily. They won't inconvenience themselves by killing just for its own sake. But if it does serve their purposes, then there's no moral norm that they themselves have internalized that moves them, that stops them from doing. So that's the clearest case. And then there's various gray areas in between. And it could be, now that's true even in the psychological literature. The concept of psychopath isn't that well defined. There's just this rough family of sort of tests, criteria that get used to try to identify someone as a psychopath. And then the sociopath concept is, it's not, some people say it's not really different than the psychopath, or some people it has a more social aspect. It's a way in which it refers more to manipulative behavior in a certain kind of certain kinds. And then the kind you were discussing, where somebody feels invisible or is incapable of having a connection with reality. They need to hurt other people to feel real. And that might be, they might feel morally justified in doing that, just because it might be an affirmation of their own sense of moral worth to act out in these ways, right? That's a kind of psychologists will talk about that as a kind of narcissistic personality disorder. And maybe in extreme forms, I'm sure there'd be people who would be classified as sociopaths who act that way.
All right, so we're coming up on time here, so we need to start wrapping this up. But Aaron, you mentioned that there have been all these comments about your book. Do you want to just tell us what some of the most interesting criticisms or interesting comments have been?
Let's see. Yeah, to the extent I've paid a lot of attention to. Yeah. I mean, I think there was one that I was impressed by that was on the Amazon site, where the person, so the theory of the asshole is neutral on political questions, because you have to plug in a conception of what people are or are not entitled to apply the theory. So, if you're on the right or the left, you can plug in your own judgments about what people are entitled or not to, and that yields different conclusions about who the assholes are, right? That's not a disagreement about what it is to be an asshole, but who they are. And then I think there was a really smart, thoughtful post on the Amazon page where somebody had pointed out had explained in a nice way how that worked, but from a more right-leaning point of view. So I approached from the book, a lot of my examples work from a more left-leaning point of view. I say that in the book. And I, sort of just saying that's how this sort of enterprise works, and you can plug in your own examples. And then there's a whole chapter on called Asshole Capitalism that is pitched to some extent. It's taking capitalism very seriously, but it's sort of pitched from a sort of left-leaning point of view. And then this post sort of retold the whole story from a right-leaning point of view, sort of accepting the framework, but then reinterpreting it with different sort of entitlement assumptions. And so I thought that was a really nice, thoughtful, like smart kind of post and discussion. It wasn't really long, but there was really a lot of intelligence and care behind it. So and it was making what it was saying was true as well, just about the book. So I thought that was pretty good. Needle in the haystack, though, I'm afraid, for for quality.
And so what's next for you, Aaron?
I mean, aside from my usual academic writing and stuff, I am planning a popular book, writing another popular book on philosophy, surfing, philosophy, and climate change. And some of the big upshot is about leisure time and how we should work. The future of capitalism on a changing planet means that we should work a lot less than we do in a more leisurely style of capitalism, leisurely surfer-friendly style of capitalism. There's a grand argument for why it is that we should work less, and why working less is itself a kind of social contribution. And then aside from that, a lot of it is about just things that the surfer knows by virtue of knowing how to ride a wave, about attunement and going with the flow, and then why those ideas are bear on how the future of capitalism on a changing planet.
That's interesting. When we interviewed Kim Stanley Robinson, he pointed out that if ocean levels rise significantly due to global warming, there will be no more beaches on Earth, right? Because it takes millions of years to produce beaches. Yeah, I hadn't really considered how that might affect the surfers of the world, but yeah.
Well, all of the world's good waves will be gone. Yeah, I mean, and 3 feet of sort of average sea level increase only, which is a modest increase given the current projections, will pretty much leave a lot of the very best waves in the world sort of gone forever, or only rideable on the lowest tides. But a 10 feet increase, which scientists are now predicting because of the collapse of the Western Antarctica ice sheets, over 100 years, that basic 10-foot average increase basically means that all the world's surf spots, are pretty much gone or massively degraded. Let alone 17 feet, which some scientists cite, and it's all over. I mean, maybe there could be some new spots that come into existence, but that'll happen maybe on a temporary basis. But over the long run, it won't work, because for waves to be surfable, it requires thousands and thousands of years of very subtle changes for to get all of the right elements to all come together to have really good waves. So that's part of the backstory of the book, why the surfer has an existential stake in climate change, and should, from a conservative point of view, be really worried about not letting the oceans and atmosphere change very much.
Well, that's really interesting. Unfortunately, I think we should wrap this up right now. I'll just say as a last word, I just think, like I said, there's this sort of pressure toward negative comments. So I would just encourage everyone out there, if there's something you love, say something positive about it, because, you want to balance out all the assholes out there. But I think we should wrap this up there. But thank you, Aaron, so much for joining us. It was really, really interesting.
Thanks so much. Nice to be with you.
And that was our panel. So thanks to everyone for listening. For more interviews and panels, visit us at geeksguideshow.com. Thanks.